In fact, under the very concept of a market economy, capital symbolizes power. And it may be in any sector of the economy, as it is in politics. The more capital you have, the more power you have. That's number one. Point number two, the electoral process must be such that it must provide a level playing field to all participants. Fair and free elections, or free and fair elections, is the basic structure of the Constitution. Concept number two.
Just a second. Yes.
Concept number three, the moment you allow the corporate sector to donate, whether with transparency or without transparency, I'll come to that a little later, it is inconsistent with the concept of a corporate sector which is in the business of doing business. You have a memorandum of association which tells you what the objects of the corporation are. The shareholders put in their money to ensure that the corporation functions within the framework of the memorandum of association. Now you give the power through an amendment of this nature to allow shareholders' money to be used inconsistent with the memorandum of the association. It's a very serious issue. And without consultation and without the consent of the shareholder. Under which law, and I ask myself this question, can this ever be allowed? You close the account, that's the end of the matter.
You get the money, close the account, but
that's it, and then you spend it the way you want. Well, this is not a scheme for I can understand. Quite frankly, I can understand the corporate sector being told that we impose a cess like education cess. You impose a cess on the corporate functioning of companies. With that cess, you have capital, and capital you distribute in accordance with the representation in the Lok Sabha. So everybody has the same amount. And the same money can be used for that. What you are doing now is entirely different. You are saying you give me as much money as you want to give me. That Aziz argued, that
your submissions, this is not money for electoral participation, but money for
enriching the
political party.
Yeah,
individual party.
It's just enriching the party.
There are no spending requirements.
No,
no auditing requirement as to how the
no
money
accountability.
is utilized, nothing.
No accountability. Absolutely no accountability.
What's the next point?
The last point, the fifth point, is that in fact it protects the nature of the scheme protects those who have committed a crime. I'll give you an example. Under the Prevention of Corruption Act, Section 7 of the Prevention of Corruption Act, you give money to a public servant. Members of Parliament are public servants. Many members of the political party who are in the fray are public servants. Now, as your Lordship knows, under Section 7, you can also prosecute a person in anticipation of a favor, not just having granted a favor. So you give a donation, no questions asked, you get a favor, you cannot correlate one with the other, and I can't prosecute you. This is a scheme to protect criminals from being prosecuted. Just read Section 7 with me.
Of the PCI.
Prevention of Corruption Act. This is also true under the PMLA. Because a predicate offense has been committed, it results in proceeds of crime. You'll never get to know. Rather than furthering the rule of law, it stymies it. That's the other Article 14 argument. You'll never know who bribed whom, how much was the bribe for, what quid pro quo was there. You'll never get to know. That there is quid pro quo, is in my first submission. That capital and influence go together. Nobody can doubt that proposition. So in effect, through this scheme, you are trying to protect those people. Where the source of the money is, my learned friend has argued, I don't want to repeat anything that he has said. So you get access, straight away you get access. And all this anonymity that we're talking about is really not anonymous. Because the person who donates will go and tell him orally that I gave you such and such money. This is the amount I gave you, 100 crores. Only he will know that he gave.
The anonymity would exist only if it was truly fungible.
That's right.
In which case, if it's truly fungible, like a demat account, in which
That's
case, you give it to, say, the election
Then it's
commission,
anonymity.
and then it is, then it becomes anonymous.
That's right. Now it is not. In fact, it is not anonymous if you ask me. That's my submission. Because I have given 100 crores, I know that I bought a bond. My learned friend, Mr. Mr. Shant Bhushan said, no, he'd give it to a third person. Doesn't matter. But who is interested in that bond? The person who I bought the bond. So I will go and tell whoever I want to tell that I gave you. So he doesn't have to go to the State Bank of India. Let's talk practical politics. He doesn't have to go to the State Bank of India to find out. Nor does the State Bank of India have to disclose it. The person who gave it will disclose it. Because he knows why he gave it. So what is anonymous about this? This is protecting the rich.
The issue which we were just discussing, on which perhaps the learned attorney may give us an answer, but since Mr. Sibal is on his leg, we will just put it to him, Mr. Attorney, and Mr. Solicitor, you can also, in your turn, you can answer. Suppose A purchases the bond.
Yes.
A purchases bonds worth X amount, 100 crores.
Yes.
A is only the person who's been put up to purchase the bond, because that A has a KYC, etc.
Yes.
A has to only physically hand over the bond to B.
Yes.
Right? Or B gives it to C, who will in turn give it to a political party.
Correct.
Now, B, there is no control over the transaction between A and B.
Yes.
So B can trade on that bond for cash or for whatever other consideration.
Yes.
B acquires that bond.
Yes.
B hands it over to a political party.
Yes.
Or B gives it to C and C hands it over to a political party.
Yes.
The person who has satisfied the requirement of the transaction being through the normal banking channels is A, the purchaser, the ostensible purchaser of the bond.
Correct.
But this does not obviate the fact that the people who are really
Behind it.
Yes. That they have used authorized banking channels.
Yes.
All that they have to do is that
Get somebody's
it
KYC.
says trading is prohibited.
Yeah.
But there is no way you can prohibit trading in
Absolutely.
the bond.
Absolutely.
B doesn't have to buy the bond from
No, he
A
doesn't.
through official banking
No,
channels because there is no record of any transactions in the bond. It just goes from hand to hand.
That's right.
Because of the curtain, then you cannot be any questions with regard to quid pro quo.
That's right. And then, ultimately, the person who is actually invested in it is the person who will tell the political party. Who's the holder ultimately?
No. In this case, probably they'll know who's the
Could be
purchaser.
B or C.
They'll know the purchaser, but the actual purchaser is A. B.
Exactly.
Whereas in the KYC, etc., A is the one who's.
That's right. Absolutely right. So, it perpetuates.
Also, B may be an aggregator of the bonds.
That also.
By having 10 different people subscribe to 100 different people subscribe to a bonds worth 1 crore each.
That's right. Well, there the human, at least the Indian human mind is ingenious in these matters. We control the economy of the world in many ways. And the RBI raised these concerns repeatedly. We now look at question C, frequently asked questions FAQ, page 138. Question number 36.
128.
138, question 36. My lord has that? Who is the bona fide owner of the electoral bond? PDF 138. Who is the electoral owner of that? Who is the bona fide owner of that bond? Electoral bonds are bearer banking instruments. It's exactly what my lord the Chief Justice said. And the holder of electoral bonds is the bona fide owner of the same. Every scheme must have a legitimate object. What's the legitimate object here? Which is constitutional. The scheme must be such, it must be proportionate to the object sought to be achieved. And the underlying principle under the Constitution is free and fair election, which is a basic feature of the Constitution. How are you serving these three purposes, Malaj? You are serving none of these three. No legitimate object because it is not limited to the elections. No proportionality because it's unlimited. And no free and fair elections because my learned friend has shown to your lordships how heavily it is loaded towards the party in power. So you are creating a non-level playing field through the electoral bonds. And that's violative of 324. Now, Malaj, historically, as your lordship knows, Malaj, in 1969, through legislation, we had, Malaj, prohibited corporate donations altogether. And then 1985, Malaj, through an amendment, we said, okay, the corporate sector can donate, but only to the extent of 5% of the average earnings in the last 3 years, 3 financial years.
5% or 7.5%?
I'm sorry? Initial 5%. Whereas 85 was 5%. Then through an amendment, it was 2013 Act, it was changed to 7.5.
2000?
13. The Companies Act. Well, actually, I've put it all in the written submissions, but because my learned colleagues are waiting for me to end, so I'm not wanting to take their time, Melissa. Your lordships have said that do it, be as short as possible. But whatever I have said to your lordships, Melissa, are the propositions that emerge from the scheme itself.
Mr. Sibal's submissions are in which volume?
Volume 1.
Again, volume 1, right?
Yes,
Yes,
volume 1. All the submissions.
All the submissions
volume
are.
1.
Yes, we got.
And it's page